This is a regularly scheduled public session of the Woodbridge Board of Education. Is in compliance with the Open Public Meeting Act, Chapter 231, Public Laws of 1975, also known as the Sunshine Law. This meeting has been approved by resolution adopted at the reorganization meeting held on January 3rd, 2022. Notification has been sent to the record. Notification has also been posted to the Woodbridge Borough Hall, the Woodbridge Memorial Library, tapinto.net, and the Woodbridge Board of Education's website. Please be advised that all portion of this meeting is being live streamed in real time and will be recorded for rebroadcasting at a future date. Roll call.
Mr. O'Byrne.
Here.
Sorry. Mr. O'Byrne.
Here.
Mr. Biamonte.
Present.
Mr. Nieves.
Present.
Mr. Garvin.
Here.
Mr. Fallon.
Here.
And Mr. Vaccaro is absent.
All right. Thank you, trustees. Thank you for those in the audience who will be watching this online or eventually will be. Tonight is an important meeting. It is to do a review of our budget presentation. I just want to be transparent. We did move the meeting. We did a robocall so that everybody was aware that the meeting was changed. The benefit of being in a small town, the benefit of having the facilities that we do is that we are all inundated with things to do with our children. Having events that, whether it be school related, recreation related, that came into conflict. As a board, I think many have heard, I've always constantly saying our two top priorities are finance and policy, and be it that this is the budget presentation. I felt it was important enough to move the meeting and for all of us to see it, hear it, answer questions, and vote on it before it is passed on. So I appreciate everybody's flexibility with the change in time. If you have any more questions, I'm sure you could ask us after the meeting if you're not present here tonight. So thank you, trustees. Anything you'd want to add to that? We're good? Okay. So for presentations, Nicole is not here today, so we're not going to have a student representative report, but we will move straight into our presentation of the 22-23 school budget by Ms. Murray. So what I ask is that board, let's at least go down to the first row, and then we can join back. Yep.
Ready? Good evening, everyone. Is this one? Yeah. This is the presentation of the 22-23 Woodbridge School District budget. This is our Board of Education. Okay, so just a little bit about the budget, our budget assumptions. Our state aid this year is $1.4 million, almost $1.5 million, which is an increase of almost $165,000 over last year. One thing with revenue, we did eliminate the pre-K program, which we announced a few months ago, and that is a loss of $180,000 of revenue that we received every year. Some of the shared services we've entered into with the borough is to renovate the auditorium in the high school, as well as collaborate with the borough to begin exploring the options for additional education space to accommodate the increasing enrollment. We are looking to start a demographic study, hopefully within the coming months, which will help us evaluate what exactly we will need. Also in this year's budget, we have additional staff. We have a part-time office staff. We have shared staff with Moonachie, additional staff. We have budgeted for a curriculum supervisor. And we also have some positions that this year were fully funded by ARP ESSER, and in the coming year, we're going to, since there's still money left in that grant, partially pay for it with the grant and partially fund it from the budget. So that's some added positions. That's a behaviorist and a reading specialist, which I'll talk about again. That's the shared behaviorist with Moonachie. So we're sharing with Moonachie 1 day a week. as well as funding that with local funds and the ARP grant. The reading specialist is grades K through 6 and is partially funded with the grant and partially funded with the budget. We have a part-time technology support person who's been paid for out of the grant the last 2 years to help with all the remote learning. And we were able to keep him on for another year out of the budget. And the business office also has a part-time administrative assistant who is new to help us with all the reporting required for the grant and everything else that goes on in the business office. As I said, we also budgeted for the curriculum supervisor position. And as a result of, unfortunately, COVID, the transportation costs have increased significantly. So there's pretty large part for all the out-of-district students. That includes any of our special ed kids, any of our academy kids, anybody going out of district that we transport. And that's twofold, partially, as we all know, gas is climbing and the shortage of bus drivers. So if anybody wants to get their bus driver license, that would help us out. But so I know the bus companies raise their hourly rate to get people in, so it passes on to us. Another thing, we continue with our self-contained kindergarten / I believe first grade, in the lower levels. And our facilities are total cost of about $1.6 million to maintain. I have to, give a shout out to the facilities department. They do an excellent job on the budget they receive, keeping these buildings wonderful. They're clean. They're usually very accommodating when anybody comes. So shout out to them. Okay, this is our state aid. And finally, it's climbing a little. This is from 2014 forward. So as you can see, we've almost doubled since the 14-15 school year. So that's a good thing. Hopefully it continues to climb. And again, this year was almost $165,000 increase. And then we have our revenues. This is a makeup of our revenues compared to last year. So our tax levy went up 2%. It's at 19,403,308. Our state aid went up. Our fund balance, that's using our projected surplus from this year, that did increase again, what we're projecting. So that will go into next year's budget. Our miscellaneous costs, which are usually, they're made up of our shared service agreement with Moonachie, our projection for extraordinary aid, and just some miscellaneous E-rate money and unemployment funds if we get extra funds. And our SEMI money, SEMI, which is the Medicaid money, and interest on our bank accounts. A couple years back, we signed an agreement with Spencer Bank, and they gave us a very nice interest rate, especially in this time. So we're projecting interest from our bank accounts. This year, there will be no transfer out of maintenance reserve. And then the transfer from capital reserve will fund the 2 projects I mentioned earlier, refurbishing this auditorium and the demographic study. And then our tuition, although it went down slightly, the reason it went down not as much as the 180 for the pre-K, there is an increase in students coming from Moonachie for next year projected, as well as their tuition rate went up. So that's making up for that. And there's also a tuition adjustment from 1920, the school year 1920 for the certified rate versus what we had charged them. Our debt service is pretty much flat. And our federal and state grants, significantly are lower in the new budget because 21-22 contains all the ARP, ESSER, all the ESSER funds, which are not budgeted for next year. We do still have funds left, but they just roll over, so they don't get entered into the budget. And this is what that looks like in the picture. So as you can see, majority of our, 78% of our revenues are taxes. So, and then everything else, kind of tuition's probably the next biggest source. Now our expenses. Okay, our direct student expenses have increased by 423, and that accounts for 63% of our budget. Administrative costs have only increased by like 40,000, so that's relatively small, and that about 10.7%. Our maintenance of facilities, our plant costs have actually dropped by almost 20, and that's because this year we had a new vehicle for the buildings and grounds staff to plow and move stuff around, as well as new radios for our staff, because our radios are getting up there and kind of obsolete soon. So that's why this year it didn't increase quite that much, because those items are not in the budget this year. Our employee benefits pretty much just went up by the budgeted increase for 6 months. And the new positions that were added, benefits for those employees as well. And then again, our state and federal projects, the drop in that is due to, the ESSER money not being available. Debt service was flat, and our capital expenditures, it's just the difference from last year to this year. And that's pretty much the truck for buildings and grounds. And again, a picture. So student services is the largest, 63%, and the benefits for employees is 14%. So that's pretty much the bulk of our budget. So fiscal management. So we're working on, especially with the new director, to reduce the number of out-of-district placements by offering services here in district so they can remain with us. And some of the ways we do that is the self-contained preschool, as well as the self-contained kindergarten classrooms. We try to align the funds best to the district and school's plans and goals. We allocate the tax levy and the title funds to the greatest area of need, and we maximize our shared service partnerships with the town, with Moonachie. And again, this is kind of a repeat, but we continue to create new cost-saving programs for the special needs students in district. I know in the past, we used to outsource our OT, and then we have, it's now in district, so we don't pay the outsource. So it's more cost effective. And then our busing with other school districts and the jointure help us keep costs low. We don't have to maintain a fleet of buses or drivers. And then again, we continue to share services with the borough for our equipment, our fuel and maintenance, and then the renovations and the demographic studies that we're working on and partnering with them for new education space. And then again, we share our CST services with Moonachie. And then the gym and outdoor space for our recreation programs is a joint partnership with the town. Same as our facilities for summer rec, they use our facilities. And the reverse 911 system for the borough emergency announcements so they can get to all, everyone through the school. Okay, so some stuff we did good, if we can brag about ourselves. We were able to refurbish the district technology infrastructure because the communication between buildings with the amount of devices due to COVID, since it's pretty much a one-to-one initiative, needed some upgrade to handle all the traffic. And then that goes hand in hand with meeting the connectivity needs of the students. We restored our gifted and talented program at the K through 6 level. And also we got new Chromebooks at all the schools. And that was primarily funded with the ESSER funds. So that was a big help. And then we brought a reading specialist position back, as I mentioned before. We added an esports team and a boys volleyball team at the high school. We increased school safety measures this year. They're working on the cameras, bringing those in. And as I said, the radios, all new radios for better communication between buildings in any case. And then also LED lighting in the district buildings. So if you came in through the high school, the halls are all LED. We're working on the classrooms next, and then moving on to Doyle and so on. So all the lighting will be transitioned to LED, which is better for the students, as well as cost savings for our utility bills. And the big question. And I'm happy to report again this year, for the second year, it should remain flat, and the average assessed home value of $376,000. So your taxes related to the school should remain flat based on this current budget. And that's all I have, if anybody has any questions. Good. You can have that back, unless I have to answer.
No, yeah. Thank you. Trustees, any questions, comments?
Mr. President, the amount of time and effort that goes into this budget actually begins in November and December of 2021. So I really want to thank Mrs. Murray and Mr. Albro and his staff doing an outstanding job of putting this budget together.
So just to echo that, it's not just, yeah, I agree with everything you said, Chris, Mr. Garvin, but it's, I don't think to have a full appreciation, usually start with the wish list, right? Whether it's starting at zero and working your way up. But once you speak to the building administrators, there's a lot to consider. There are some assumptions, whether you're going to be favorable or unfavorable to last year's budget, state aid, et cetera. And to know that there's years that, at least I remember Joe and I going in, we were $2 million under, right? $1 million under. And that's pretty much par for the course. So it becomes,
there were several years we were at that,
right?
that
So
particular.
it becomes a negotiation. It comes to what's most important to the kids, what's most important to, learning, et cetera. So it is quite a tedious process. So I just wanted to call that out. So tonight's a little different. I see a few folks have joined us. I'll just reiterate that we had moved tonight's meeting. Again, fortunate enough to have the facilities that we do, the programs that we have, both at the school and recreation. I do believe that as a board, and you'll hear this all over the state, finance and policy are the two most important things that we, bring to the table. What is our responsibility? And because there were a lot of conflicts tonight, I wanted to make sure that everybody was here to vote and support or make comments, or in some cases, which we're not for, we're not there, but to disagree and speak to the public. So I appreciate everybody's flexibility on coming tonight at 5 o'clock. I will go into the superintendent's report, I will go through all of our committee reports quickly, then I'll open it up to resolutions where we will talk about any questions you have about tonight's presentation, and then we'll move into a regular hearing of citizens. So, Tony, I'll turn over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Nieves. Good evening. I certainly hope that everyone enjoyed a most restful spring recess period. It might be hard to believe, but at the close of school today, we now have only 37 school days remaining in the current school year. As we approach the finish line, so to speak, now is the time of the year when everything seems to happen in a flash, and there's nearly one event or another taking place daily. One reminder or announcement I want to put out is probably tomorrow, via email and eventually website announcement, we're going to advertise our next in our series of virtual workshops for our district parents between Moonachie and Woodridge, co-sponsored by the Woodridge Parent Advisory Network and both the Woodridge and Moonachie Boards of Education. We have presenters from Care Plus next Tuesday night, starting at 6 p.m. Again, it's virtual, and information for joining up with the Zoom meeting will be posted on the website. And the title is Gain Insight on How to Improve Your Child's Executive Functioning, Planning, Organization, Time Management, Metacognition, Working Memory, Self-Control, Attention, Flexibility, and Perseverance. That'll again take place next Tuesday night, a week from tomorrow at 6 p.m., and it'll be conducted by our on-site clinicians from Care Plus, and it'll be entirely virtual. As we close out the month of April, we are conducting our Junior Honor Society induction ceremonies this Wednesday evening at 6 p.m. in our high school gymnasium. The Honor Society will be inducting 21 total students from the 7th and 8th grades. As we enter the month of May, the high school students will be participating in advanced placement testing during the first 2 weeks of the month. We'll be honoring our senior athletes on May 4th at 2 p.m. in our annual College Signing Day program, which will take place in the auditorium. The high school will conduct its annual spring concert on Tuesday, May 10th, beginning at 7 p.m. The 8th graders will be participating in their Washington, D.C. trip, beginning on May 11th. As we enter the middle of the month, our high school students will be engaged in the administration of state testing, beginning on May 16th. Students in grades 8 and 11 will participate in the state science assessment. Students in grades 7 through 9 will participate in the state English language arts assessment. Math assessments will then be administered to students enrolled in grades 7 and 8 math, Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. At Doyle School, the students are currently involved in their Earth Week Spirit Days, all this week in their observance of Earth Day. The school will observe, of course, May the 4th be with you, and have a Star Wars Day, of course, on May the 4th. The Doyle School Art Show will take place on Wednesday, May 18th. The Doyle School third graders will participate in state assessments in math and English language arts, beginning during the second week of May. We also have a variety of field trips taking place at the Doyle School throughout the month of May. At the intermediate school, prior to our spring recess, our students put together an incredibly informative science fair for their peers and for their family members. I was greatly impressed at the variety of science concepts put on display, and those students that I chose to quiz on their particular projects certainly knew their stuff. As we move through the month of May, the students will continue to participate in a variety of activities, including choir, drama, art club, math league, journalism club, and instrumental music, many of which are preparing for their end-of-year performances or presentations. State assessments for students in grades 4 through 6 will begin during the month of May as well. Finally, of course, this Thursday is Take Your Child to Work Day in New Jersey. This absence is permitted by the governor each year. If you plan to have your child visit your workplace and not attend school on this Thursday for all or part of the day, please let your child's teacher know as soon as possible. This Wednesday is Administrative Professionals Day. Next week is Teacher Appreciation Week, and the week after is New Jersey Special Education Week. A reminder, our next scheduled board meeting is for Monday, May 9th. And that concludes my report, Mr. Nieves.
Thank you, sir. Trustees, comments, questions, concerns?
Mr. Albro, Take Your Child to Work Day. Does that apply even to adult children?
As we've discussed, Mr. Garvin, Ms. Garvin is free to go with you.
Thank you.
All right. Approval of minutes. Upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education approved minutes of the following meeting, executive and work session, April 11th, 2022. Can I get it first? Mr. Fallon, Mr. O'Byrne, discussion, roll call.
Mr. Fallon,
Yes.
Mr. Garvin,
Yes.
Mr. O'Byrne,
Yes.
Mr. Vaccaro is absent, Mr. Biamonte,
Yes.
Mr. Nieves.
Yes. Trustees, I assume it's okay for me to read through the committee reports? Change it up this meeting? Yeah, okay. Well, before we go there, anything for new business? Okay. All right, curriculum and instruction, approval of field trip requests, approval to purchase equipment, approval of temporary home instruction related services, personnel, acceptance of leave of absence, approval of chaperone, approval of personnel appointment, approval of professional development request. Policy, none at this time. Buildings and grounds, we have one approval of facilities request. For finance, we have approval of the fund transfers, approval of the final budget for the 22-23 school year, which was this presentation, approval of the bills list, approval of the monthly financial reports of the board secretary and treasurer, approval of certification of a balanced budget, approval of budget transfers, approval of acceptance of donation, and lastly, board operations, affirmation of superintendent's report of incidents of harassment, intimidation, and bullying, otherwise known as HIB, within the district. Before I open it up, any other comments on our resolutions tonight? We're good. I will open it up to the hearing of citizens on resolutions only.
Bonnie Taylor, 64 Woodridge Street. I had a question in regards to the shared services with the borough. I see that we're going to have $25,000 for the demographic study. Who's doing the demographic study?
We currently have two groups who have submitted proposals, and we'll be making a decision on which one will serve our needs best.
So the district's going to be conducting the study? The district will be conducting the study?
The district will be contracting with someone to conduct the study.
Okay. My second question is regards to the auditorium. The $50,000 for the auditorium, that's coming out of the school district's budget? What is the contribution from the borough then for the total project?
I would say 85% of the remainder of the cost for the refurbishment of this entire facility.
85% of the remainder of the cost? Good, thank you.
No? Okay. Well, hearing none, seeing none, I will close the hearing of citizens on resolutions only. Trustees, looking for your support, which is Woodridge only. I have curriculum and instruction, 3. I have personnel, 4. And I have buildings and grounds, 1. Can I get a first? Mr. Biamonte, Mr. Fallon, discussion, roll call.
Mr. Fallon,
Yes.
Mr. Garvin,
Yes.
Mr. O'Byrne,
Yes.
Mr. Vaccaro is absent, Mr. Biamonte,
Yes.
Mr. Nieves.
Yes. Trustees, looking for your support, which includes Munaki. Curriculum instruction 1 and 2, personnel 1, 2, and 3, none for policy, none for buildings and grounds, finance 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and board operations 1. Can I get a first? Mr. Garvin, second. Mr. Biamonte.
Mr. Fallon,
Yes.
Mr. Garvin,
Yes.
Mr. O'Byrne,
Yes.
Mr. Vaccaro is absent, Mr. Biamonte,
Yes.
Mr. Nieves.
Yes. Thank you, trustees, for your support as always. Before we open up to hearing of citizens on everything else, do we have anything for communications? Nope. The only thing I will bring up for unfinished business, which sits with me, and I will make sure that I get something scheduled within the next week, Mr. O'Byrne, is for us to come back to the whole technology presentation we want to do. So, Tony, we will look for a time on your calendar, either the end of this week, beginning of next week, okay? If nothing else, I'll open it up to hearing of citizens on anything you'd like to talk about.
Bonnie Taylor, 64 Woodbridge Street. I understand that we're going through our AP exams right now. How many subject areas have AP exams in the district?
Mrs. Taylor, I was actually looking at that a couple of minutes ago. I can't tell you the exact number, as I have many numbers in my head right now. I would say at least seven areas are being advanced placement testing, but I can get you the exact number when the meeting's over.
Okay. And how many students are taking the test?
I can get you that information as well.
Okay. Thank you. And then my final question is, how is the district planning to address the revised sex education standards that are going to place next year?
Which standards?
The revised sex education standards.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear it.
This sex education.
Health standards.
Yes.
Of course, it's been a very popular topic recently. And if you've been following the news, the governor, who had been quiet about it for a while, responded by saying he would direct the department to look into it further. Last week, of course, when we were on spring recess, we received a message from the State Department of Education. And the State Department said, while the curriculum standards have been established, curriculum is a local decision. And essentially, the standards being written are goals, if you will, and it's up to the district locally to decide how they're going to reach those goals. So they have essentially backed off on many of the topics that have caused such an uproar in our community and statewide. The curriculum in all of those areas will be revised throughout the summer. Right now, I know there's legislation for how the curriculum would be presented to the public, whether it will be mandated to be posted on the website by a certain date during the summertime. I really don't anticipate a great many changes to what we're doing currently. However, there are some things in need of revision.
Okay. And will there be a committee established in regards to that changes in the curriculum?
We have 9 different areas that need to be revised for curriculum during the summer for September. And I imagine that obviously the physical education and health content standards being of the most information right now, being in the news right now, we will be sure to put together some sort of committee. But again, what the state released last week essentially backed off from what caused the initial uproar.
Thank you.
All right, hearing none, seeing none. Faith, do you have anything? All right. I will close the hearing of citizens. Trustees, thank you. We did approve the budget to take it to the next step tonight. Janine, thank you for the presentation. Again, and the lengthy process. And Chris, I know you go through that a little bit, with the team as well. So, motion to adjourn?
Oh, one moment, Mr. Nieves.
Yes.
Was there anything submitted via email to the website? Questions? No?
No.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Motion to adjourn? Mr. Fallon? Mr. Biamonte? All in favor? All opposed? Close tonight's hearing. Thank you.